Thank you. Well, for the next 20 minutes, I want to talk about something I guess all of you are interested in. It's innovation, but I want to take a little bit a different angle. I want to ask about what is good and what is bad innovation, and how can Switzerland compete globally on a scale. And I have a few interesting slides. So this is Sunday afternoon. You're here on a quite nice day on a Sunday afternoon, so it shows your dedication to innovation. Congratulations to all of you of making it that far. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. I hope you don't mind. But innovation is a buzzword. Every politician, every entrepreneur, every CEO is using the word. And I was wondering why you're in that sector. Why do you care about innovation? Some people want to get famous, become a celebrity. Some people want to save the world. Some people want to make money. Maybe I'll just go a quick show of hands. Who's into innovation because they want to get rich? All right, okay, yeah, be honest, that's perfect. I like that. I'll come back to it. Anyone wants to save the world? Okay, yeah, oh, multiple, wonderful, more people saving the world. Anyone becomes, yeah, sure. And anyone become famous, maybe, famous? That's interesting. The famous bit is in Switzerland, it's like, no, I'm okay with money. Perfect. So I like you're a bit engaged, so I'll keep it that way. And I'll get back to you if you want to add something. Sorry, you're...
I wonder how it is possible to get one without the other, if one does not need...
Interesting question. I don't know. We can debate, maybe we can create into Q&A. Interesting question. But my key point this afternoon is, and that's sort of the title of my presentation, I strongly believe that it matters a lot where innovation happens. And congratulations, I think you're in one of the best places to make sensible innovation or good innovation. And that's what I want to show to you. So I truly believe that it's important where it happens. So let me try to convince you. So, as a bit of a provocative question, can innovation be good or bad? And anyone thinks that innovation can be, let's say, I think a lot of you believe it's going to be good. Anyone think it can be bad too? Someone? No, it's always, someone.
It's always both. Yeah.
It's always both. I like that. Okay, yeah. Because normally it's like, yeah, innovation, like, okay, so I'll come back to that. And the other question that, if you believe that it matters, and I'll try to convince you that it's important where innovation happens, I think Switzerland is a great place for innovation. I'll prove it to you. But my question is, when you look at the US, in the last year, they invested $42.5 billion in AI alone. The entire sector in Switzerland, VC funding last year was below 4 million. I think the peak was 4 billion. Last year it was lower. How can we, as a tiny little country, compete on that scale? I'll try to come back to that, but I think it's an important question. If you believe that's important where innovation happened. And what I like to show is like everyone likes, some of you guys want to get rich, everyone likes numbers. Have you seen that? Saudi Arabia wants to invest 40 billion into AI. You seen that? And they also want to develop AGI. So I'll try to make my first point why it matters where innovation happens. So I joked to my wife, I said, if they're going to develop autonomous cars or any type of tech, what kind of data do they have? They will only have data from male drivers. Why? Because until very recently in Saudi Arabia, women were not allowed to drive. Furthermore, as you know, if you get punished in Saudi Arabia, they're still chopping off hands and hanging people. What kind of AGI comes out of a country that's that data set? Ever thought about that? Just think about it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it maybe makes you think about, hey, maybe it's important where it happens. But then, as you guys like numbers, it's like, poor Saudi Arabia. 40 billion. What about 7 trillion? Like what Sam always said, we will put 7 trillion to work into AGI. So again, the US, never shy of competing anyone, puts those massive numbers out there. I know it's debated if he said that or not, but I think the direction is clear. So how can we compete in the future with the US? And does it matter? We say, hey, it's okay, the US are all fine, or does it matter where innovation comes from? And as we are a crypto conference, I'd like to show that, sometimes bad things happen, even in the US. Who thinks that 25 years for Sam Altman is not enough? Anyone thinks he should go to jail forever? Okay, one. Some people think it's too long. Okay, some was, and anyone thinks that 25 years is right? So they're right. Okay, interesting. There you go. But obviously, so there's a lot of debate how many people have got hurt or not. But the only thing I'm trying to say is innovation can go both ways, as you said. But more interesting when we talk about the US, and that's one of the first interesting points. And I'm interested in what you think about it. It seems like quite often things go bad in the US, no? I mean, you got Elizabeth Holmes from Terranos, you got Adam Newman. There you can debate how bad it was or not. From WeWork, we got Sam Bankman-Fried, we got Silicon Valley Bank. So it seems, at least when something goes wrong in the US, the outcome is pretty darn big. But the question is, when you talk about innovation, it's about failure, no? We all know. Things can go wrong. So the question, I think that's a societal question, and coming back to my point, it matters that we have a discussion, is how much downside do you want to have when you do innovations? How big of a downside are we as a society comfortable? And the interesting thing about the US is they seem to be quite comfortable with pretty big downsides because the upsides are so big, no? The more the upside, the more you accept the downside. So the interesting question here is, and it's a bit also with Sam Bankman-Fried, what kind of innovation you want to have? You want to move fast and break things? You just fake it until you make it? How much do you want that, and how much do you say, hey, actually, we don't want those extreme outcomes? And I'll come back to that because it has to do with Switzerland. So what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to prove the point that innovation can go both ways. And probably, as the gentleman here said, you always have a bit of both. You never quite know. It depends, before he went to jail, Sam Bankman-Fried, he met, Biden, he met the CFTC. He was very highly regarded. All of a sudden, he's in jail. Anyhow. Coming back to my point, why it is important where innovation happens. Have you seen that very recently? I think dated 28th of March. The SEC got, in a court case, now got the permission to sue Coinbase. I know Coinbase is suing the SEC as well, so it's an interesting dance. Have you seen that? Because it's interesting what they're saying. They're saying they got the permission now to sue Coinbase because they now believe that staking is a service that's a security service. And then the SEC is in charge, and they say it's an unregistered activity. It should be registered. So it's very interesting. And as I'm sure all of you are aware, this is the SEC. Then the CFTC, the other regulator, has a different view, and they like to feud about it. So this is insane. It's literally insane to watch how a big country like the US gets something like that so wrong, where one of the two regulators are feuding who's in charge and what it is, and they're suing each other or suing a big player. Let me contrast to Switzerland. Who has seen that? End of last year, the FINMA, the regulatory, changed its practice on staking. Who's aware of that? A few? Okay, a few, great. Well, it's very interesting. And now my point, why it's important where innovation happens. FINMA put out a proposal last year about how to treat staking service providers. And they focused very much on what happens in a bankruptcy case. How directly can you access your coins? And to be frank, in the light of FTX and some others, it's a valid question, But they were a bit restrictive. The result was you had to be a bank. And that was very bad for a lot. So a lot of the industry got together, that's the Swiss Blockchain Federation, the lobby organization, and they had a discussion with FINMA, and FINMA updated their staking provision. And what I understand from most of the service providers, that's something they can live with. And it shows a quite contrast to the US. Do you agree? The US is suing without giving clear guidelines, and here there's a debate going on. It's co-creation. Again, it matters where innovation happens. And someone whom you all like, I'm sure, I hope, you're at the Ethereum conference, is Vitalik. And he worries a lot about innovation too, and he worries about cars. Who's aware of that he's worried about cars? Interesting. Okay, following him, because there's a key term in there, privacy. He worries about cars because autonomous cars or semi-autonomous cars collect a lot of data. A Tesla has 6 cameras and collects up to 19 terabytes of data every day, sends it to the US, processes it, Elon Musk said, and use it for AI. Whatever they do with it, your data, you are collecting. When you drive a Tesla, you're collecting data not about yourself, but your entire surrounding. He worries about that. I do too. And privacy is obviously something, a value that's embedded in innovation. You can ignore it or say, hey, it's important. So he worries a lot about that. He worries a lot about it. He recently had a blog post that's end of last year where he's contemplating, because there's two opposing forces. One is privacy. I think anonymity is the wrong word. It should be privacy. And you have to have sort of compliance. You want to prevent bad actors using certain things. You know, that's the sanction list. And that's something you need to find a balance. And he worries a lot about it. Read up. And he published a paper with the University of Basel. Interesting. Why the University of Basel? Because the University of Basel is in Switzerland, and we Swiss care about privacy. Again, it makes a big impact if you do this here or somewhere else. It matters where innovation happens. And sorry to keep pushing, but that end of last year, who has seen that? He wants, there you go, a few. Who knows what a cypherpunk is? And I'd just like to say, I'll come back to that. You have to be very careful about the spelling. It's YPH. It's not B. Okay. So it's cypherpunk. It's not cyberpunk. I saw on the agenda someone talks about cyberpunk. It's the wrong thing. Sorry. I have to be a stickler because it's important. So he wants Ethereum to become more cypherpunk. So anyone knows what a cypherpunk is or a concept? Anyone? Yes. I don't have a micro. I think you can shout. I have to stand here. Do you want to answer? Correct.
Try to basically give to humans like means for the human rights privacy through cryptographic means, through the strength of the mathematics.
Perfect. You got it. You nailed 100 points. And why is it important? Because Bitcoin, we don't know 100% who invented it, but the first transaction happened in California among the cypherpunks. The whole crypto movement, the whole Bitcoin movement is cypherpunk. If you don't know about it, read up about it, because it's the DNA of all what we're here for. And he cares about it, and I care about it, because that's the point. As you correctly said, cypherpunk it's a technology movement, and they care about cryptography. You want to make things private. You want to protect certain information. It's privacy enhancing, and it's about social and political change. But first and foremost, it's the worry that the state becomes omnipresent with the data and the technology now available to the state. That's the cypherpunk movement. You want to have check and balances. It's not about total anonymity. I mean, some are maybe libertarian, but basically, it's giving the tools to us so we can protect ourselves from an overreach from governments. Yes, comment.
I think it would give clarity because the concept is new that one of the key points is that they consider privacy as a human right.
Correct.
And not all philosophies or movements see privacy that way.
Correct. Perfect. But it's a human right that you can protect yourself. It's privacy from overreach from the government. All right. Interesting. Coming back to Switzerland. Who knows David Chaum? He's he's a cypherpunk. He was instrumental. He created e-money, or e-cash, excuse me. That was a predecessor to Bitcoin. He's a cryptographer, and a lot of the cryptographers in the US are cypherpunks because they want to protect. And he recently talked about privacy in a pilot for wholesale CBDC. I know wholesale CBDC is not everyone's favorite topic, but he did that with the Swiss National Bank. And now look at what the Swiss National Bank said about the pilot. What does it start off? He's a board member. Privacy is an important user requirement, but it's difficult to solve. And he goes on about this balance between privacy and compliance. You have to do this. But what I'm trying to say again, the Swiss care about privacy. If you go to Saudi Arabia, would you expect the same statement? I don't know. I would guess not. So it is important that we do it here. So sort of coming to the second point, how can we compete? Switzerland is the world innovation champion. There's different stats the UN has done, the World Intellectual Property Organization. But why are we so innovative? And is that enough for us to influence positive change when it comes to technology? Well, we have a bit of a track record. In June last year, we were awarded as the #1 crypto hub in the world by CoinDesk. It says Zug, but basically they meant Switzerland. But now, something totally different. Who has watched the NVIDIA GTC conference? Okay, so this is Jensen Huang, founder and CEO of NVIDIA. And he's on stage with robots. Which robot is real? Do you know? 1 robot, 2 or 3. You see 4 robots. 1 is real. The other are sort of projections. Any ideas? Any guesses? Paula knows.
We have a microphone here.
No, it's okay, the little one.
The little one. Yes, yes. That's on stage in Silicon Valley last month. Let me show you. That's what I taped last month at ETH in Zurich. If it runs. This is 30 minutes from here. That thing was developed by Disney Research Lab. Disney Research Lab develops here in Switzerland with ETH this robot. That robot was on stage. The real robot that was on stage was made in Zurich. It's tech developed in Switzerland that it's cutting edge. We're really cutting edge. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. Yeah, that's a fellow. My girls even touched it. They were very excited. So finalize, how can we compete? And another gentleman who studied in Switzerland, ETH, is Albert Einstein. He said creativity is intelligence having fun. So what do you need for innovation? Innovation is experimentation. It's about trying out things. We all agree, trying new things, but things fail. But it's 2 parts. You also need sort of certain guidelines of certain things you don't want to happen, when it gets too bad. But the innovation bit is creativity first. And for that, you need freedom. And I think this is the contrast to other, like when you do something innovation in Saudi Arabia and China, certain things you're not allowed to do because the government doesn't want you to do that, because it's not. Switzerland is very free, and one of the reasons why we're world champion is this. The Human Freedom Index, I think for 10 years consecutively, we're the freest country in the world, Switzerland. You're living in paradise, if you will, if you like freedom. And we're here, so we're at the forefront of that. But I think there's one thing missing. If we want to compete on a global scale, and that's my key message beside that, you're all in the right location, is we have to improve with one thing, and I think one thing that we have to, as Swiss, become better. And I like that a lot of you raise your hands when it's about making money. Because I'm writing a book about AI based on interviews, and I interviewed this gentleman. He's Stefan Grieken. He's ex-Google, Silicon Valley. He has a startup here, Cradle.bio. They're doing gene sequencing and protein development with AI. And he said the problem with Switzerland is this: is like first-time founders or Swiss founders, they think about the product. We Swiss like quality. We like the best product. We like to be amazing. Like this little robot on stage. It's amazing. The interesting thing is I asked the guys, what's the commercial application? It's going to be starring in film. They said, no, it's CCGI is better. What about theme parks? Well, you need to control it, we don't know yet. So those researchers had no clue how to make money out of it. It's super tech, but it's like no clue how to make money. They literally said, that's the guys in the US. They're going to figure out how we're going to make money out of this thing, which was a very Swiss statement because what he said, the second-time founders think about distribution, how to sell your product. And I do believe that Americans think about distribution first. They think first, how can we sell it? And then they develop the tech. The Swiss, we develop the tech, and then we have the product. But I think, to summarize and finish up, if we as a Swiss country need to go up against the big guys, whoever you think that is, if it's US or Saudi Arabia, we are free to innovate. We have the creativity. It's our secret sauce. But I think we have to learn how to become better at commercializing and at selling products at scale. It's my belief. I've been a consultant for more than 2 years. I was executive in different startups. I've seen it again and again. And I hope that you get inspired to really go on this product journey. I'm happy to have conversations if you want to learn something about it. And I think as Swiss, we have to punch above our weight. The freedom and the innovation bit we have sorted out. I don't worry about innovation in Switzerland. We have world tech coming out of Switzerland. We have to become bolder and better in commercializing. And then we can compete and create tech that's not AGI from Saudi Arabia, I hope. With that, thank you very much.
Love it, impressive. We have questions right away. I'll give you the microphone.
Hi, I'm sorry, I walked in late to your talk. I'm not sure if you talked about Mika, but you were mentioning, go ahead.
I know in the description it was...
yeah, but what I did hear you say was the influence of U.S. regulatory apparatus on crypto globally, but the reality is Mika actually are a set of regulations that the EU has issued. And I find Switzerland to be in an interesting situation because, you know, it participates in the EU common market, but it actually is not part of the EU, so it doesn't have any influence over the decisions. But in a lot of ways, it's become constrained, right, without having a voice at the table. And I think these conflicts are going to become more acute. Financial regulation is another example of that as well. As you know, even though, you know, crypto is flourishing in Switzerland, like the Swiss banking regulations are very compliant with US regulations and EU regulations. So how do you think about MiCA and the kind of very aggressive stance it's taken on a lot of issues, very thorny issues in crypto?
I had on Friday a chat, an opening chat with Claudio Tessone about that. I know in the description it says about MiCA. There's two views, very general answers. I think this cross-border issue in finance, as Swiss, we've had it for many years. It's in traditional finance. And still we have the biggest wealth manager in the world based in Switzerland. So somehow we're Swiss, and that's sort of my answer to your question. We're very good in creating ties with other ecosystems. And if you look at that, so we're actually a home of blockchain association we're running. We're really building ties with Dubai, with Singapore, with UK. I think we always, as smaller country, we need to obviously look what the big guys are doing, but we also need to build ties with other countries. And why this is something that we Swiss are very good at, there's so many international companies based here that help us reach out. So the downside is, you know, yes, MiCA will have effects. You know, we can't ignore it. But I think we've been historically very clever in sorting out how to still access those markets. So I'm not as gloom and doom as some people are. And there's some workarounds. You can go through Liechtenstein potentially, without going into details. But I think it's not the end of the world.
We like Liechtenstein. It's a wonderful place. It's a gateway to Europe.
Yeah, but I'm going to push back here because I'm not just American. I live in Switzerland. And it's not easy to open a bank account as an American in Switzerland, right? And so it's not this sort of like, Switzerland will have to cooperate with trading partners like the EU and with the US, and it already does have a significant amount of restrictions. So unless we actually think through these harder problems around how to balance, right, for example, privacy pools, like you mentioned, I don't think it's going to have, I don't think it's going to have as much freedom to say not comply with these jurisdictions within which it is nested in and within which it's trading, as you might think.
I think that's true. I mean, Americans in Switzerland bank accounts, that has a long history going back to the financial crisis. That's unfortunately a very unique problem. It's not that the banks don't want American clients. It's just the reporting is a nightmare when you have American clients. Sorry to hear that. You're not the only one. And my general observation, maybe a bit more the crypto libertarian view of mine, is I agree. And I think, you know, I agree that you have to comply with certain standards in certain countries. And MiCA you can't ignore. I mean, but the interesting bit about blockchain and crypto is it's decentralized. It's very hard to pin down where things happen. So I always said, you know, a lot of what is happening in DeFi is sort of not regulated. It doesn't fit. Even MiCA doesn't talk about DeFi or even when it comes to stablecoin. There's a lot of gaps in there. But the pure existence that there's an alternative out there is sort of what I call the poke the bear effect. And it's good that someone is poking the bear. And maybe Switzerland sometimes also poking the bear. We did it last time with Libra and Diem. We got really reprimanded by the US, but we have a bit of a tendency to every now and then poke the bear. And I think even as crypto and Ethereum community, sometimes you have to do things that are not completely, you know, thought through by the government, because then you push innovation forward. So I think without those alternatives, then we would be totally lost, because then we're locked in. So I agree that we need to mostly be compliant, but sometimes, you know, certain things get developed, and then the regulators to figure out what to do with it. And I think AI is a very good point in case, you know, no one has really figured that out. But because it's there, we start thinking about it. And Switzerland can do that, you know.
Powerful. One more question, please. I'll come to you. Right. The last question, then we'll move on, but that's powerful.
I was just wondering, so you're suggesting that we need to be compliant, and I feel like in DeFi or building stuff on Ethereum, what's the point of being compliant? Like, that's the whole purpose of cyberpunk is not being compliant, right? And things like just building a simple software, like Tornado Cash, it's just a simple protocol. Somehow, they really go after those developers and put them in prison. Just like, what's the whole point of it?
You'll answer.
I have, I've been in crypto for 7 or 8 years. I've met Vitalik and a few others. So I have I'm not libertarian, but I'm a liberal person. So I like that some people are doing things that are just not fully thought through. I think the reality is, if you really want to get depressed, besides Tronado on Unbanked, the podcast recently, Paolo, or what's his name, the Tether CEO, I keep forgetting his family. He gives an interview, and he states very clearly, a lot of people think Tether is, not regulated. He says in the podcast, they work with the SEC and the FBI directly. So the Americans have a pass through. So unfortunately that is happening, but it's it's such a complicated and fast-moving spectrum that sometimes the regulator just doesn't catch up, and I think that's still good. I still remember in 2018, I was on stage, it was when the ICO guidelines came out. And then someone said something very simple, or very similar. He said, we're decentralized. We don't care about a regulator. And I still remember a lawyer friend of mine got up and he said, yes, the blockchain protocol doesn't care. The algorithm doesn't care. That's true. But if the police shows up in the morning at your house and knocks at the door, you're not decentralized. So that's sort of a bit the problem that exists. But the world has enough pockets where and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. No one, even China has tried to kill crypto, I think 6 times. When I counted correctly, they haven't managed. So, my hats off to everyone who's trying, and really, it's a political, societal mission to keep pushing that and not giving up. And sometimes you have some hard experiences.